let's talk about 2 ways to reboot an old-school television franchise for the modern era. These are both young adult high school love triangle romance shows, but one of them works while the other sucks harder than running out of Scooby snacks. Both The Addams Family and Scooby Doo are generally thought of as family-friendly episodic comedies. They've both existed since the 1960s in numerous projects throughout television and film, though they've mostly been thought of as kid-friendly. Scooby Doo and The Addams Family have even crossed over before in animation.
Now I know why this house looked so familiar. It belongs to the Addams Family.
You're right! I've seen it on TV lots of times.
Wednesday knows its audience. It's aimed at young adults, as its main characters are all students at a magic school that takes its cliques very seriously. You're either a vampire, a werewolf, a siren, or a gorgon. It's like Twilight with a little Greek myth thrown in. Or Harry Potter. I don't know, I was never into Harry Potter, so nobody had to convince me not to play the new Wizard School game. Wednesday herself has psychic visions in the show. That's her special identity. The plot all centers around a series of murders, and Wednesday is looking for the monstrous killer. By the way, this is the same plot that Velma has. They must have pulled it out of a vault of stock television scripts. Jenna Ortega fits the role of Wednesday perfectly with the cold, reserved nature of a serial killer, though played for laughs because she's a teenage girl. She unleashes piranhas on the swim team in the first episode. Yeah, those students are probably dead now. Her character grows a little throughout the season, though the constant dry nature of her dialogue eventually left me wanting her to give at least a little emotion.
Anytime I grow nauseous at the sight of a rainbow or hear a pop song that makes my ears bleed, I'll think of you.
I suppose that is the difficulty of building an entire show around this character. This is why her roommate is an upbeat and bubbly werewolf girl, with her wolf transformation referred to as wolfing out, a metaphor for a teen dealing with puberty. Or even being gay.
You want to send me to conversion therapy for werewolves?
It worked wonders for your cousin Lucille, didn't it?
Their bedroom is split down the middle, defining their mirrored relationship. Gwendoline Christie works well in the role of the principal, and a return to the franchise from Christina Ricci as a teacher fleshes out the main cast. The costumes and sets all capture the world of a gothic cartoon. The production design is where the show shines. This makes sense with a heavy involvement from Tim Burton producing the show and directing 4 episodes. Burton's work has over the years become more style over substance, and this show isn't a complete exception. The murder mystery is formulaic. When the writer needs to find a way for Wednesday to discover a clue in the mystery, she has a hallucination to progress the plot. Velma also experiences hallucinations, only in that show, it's explained that it's because of her daddy issues. Velma actually ends up on a stripper pole. Wednesday has a love triangle with 2 different boys. One, a normie named Tyler, and the other, a creepy artist named Xavier. But it turns out the seemingly more normal guy was actually the evil one. Ooh, what a twist. Wednesday uses martial arts to beat up a group of bullies, and it's very silly. The best scene from the show is at the school dance when Wednesday does a choreographed routine to the Cramps song Goo Goo Muck, and it's just a lot of fun. The character Thing looks good, but the design of the CG monster in the woods is bad. It doesn't look scary, it looks like a mascot on a cereal box. The monster is called a Hyde, as in Jekyll and Hyde. At the end we see Tyler transform into the Hyde, and I would definitely call it a Netflix tier effect. The best episodes were the ones where the rest of the family members showed up. Catherine Zeta-Jones makes a delightful Morticia. Louis Guzman's Gomez appears more like the one from the original comic strip. Kind of a schlubby looking dude with a smoking hot wife. So many television shows use the old trope of the couple that has grown tired of one another, but Gomez and Morticia are appropriately horny, grabbing each other through the bars of a jail cell. Uncle Fester is played by Fred Armisen, and he shows up to make an unsettling joke about necrophilia. The villain is a dude named Joseph Crackrock, a witchfinder general who in the past forced his puritanical views on others. In a vision, Wednesday meets her ancestor Goody Adams, who battled and defeated Joseph Crackrock. The monster in the modern day is actually the normie son of the sheriff, who has been transformed by the teacher, who is kind of like the teacher of the dark arts who always turns out to be the villain in every Harry Potter movie, making Joseph Crackrock pretty much the Voldemort. But we're not going to talk about Harry Potter. We're not going to talk about Harry Potter at all. Wednesday is a show about embracing the weird, but I can see why it's so popular. It's middle of the road and inoffensive, though well made for a young adult show about a magic school. I'm not in the target audience for this one, but I'm still a teenage goth kid at heart. I'll go with a 6 out of 10. Moving on to Velma. How does a Scooby Doo spinoff fit into the culture war? Climb in the mystery machine and find out. I promise I'm not a groomer. That is exactly what a groomer would say, though.
All cool fashion advertising for teens is just trashy, pedo-tinged sex stuff.
I'm really not sure who the target audience for this one is. It's probably not Scooby Doo fans. It's very snarky and self-righteous, like it's too good for Scooby Doo. There's even a scene where Velma and Daphne are talking, and it says F you right in the middle of the screen. This is how the show feels about the fans of its IP.
Especially 420 related humor, kill me. You know what 420 is, right?
Yeah, it's code for adults who still watch cartoons.
Scooby Doo is a non-violent cartoon made for children about a group of friends solving mysteries in a van. Velma is an adult cartoon with nudity and violence about a group of insufferable high schoolers taking turns hooking up with one another. I hesitate to even call them friends because they seem like the worst friend group ever. Norval, Fred, and Daphne all have a crush on Velma, even though Velma is a self-centered and mean-spirited friend. Velma first has a crush on Daphne, who she makes out with, but she also has a crush on Fred. Fred and Daphne also make out in the first episode. After Velma makes Fred read a book on feminism, he falls for her, but now that she's turned him into a feminist, she's not into him anymore. Velma eventually decides it's Norval she wants to hook up with, but now Norval is hooking up with Gigi. In one scene, Velma thinks that Daphne and Gigi are about to make out, but instead, they all fall in a cave. I feel more like I'm running some kind of gossip column than I am talking about a TV show. I'm never watching anything written by Mindy Kaling again. The main drive of the show is that Velma is searching for her lost mom. She finds her, but her mom has amnesia, so they do a whole amnesia episode. Doesn't that sound fun? Daphne gets a side story where she meets her real parents, who are criminals dressed up as Captain Caveman. Her real parents use and abandon her, then her 2 cop moms show up to save her. Backstory side quest complete. Daphne's moms are also very cringe, and I'm just not into cringe humor.
That's the 411 home skillet.
Words.
One of the first visual gags in the show is an image of 2 roaches humping. That's the joke. Then there's one of several uncomfortable fanfiction, nude high school girl shower scenes where the characters go all meta.
See, now if this was a show, it'd be super hot if you two kissed.
The show references itself a lot, and it never seems very witty. A couple girls get their brains removed, but it turns out they're not really dead. The brains live on in jars. In the first episode, Fred cuts a student's leg off, but the show doesn't go all in on the violence. It's just there so that they can call it an adult animated show. But I don't see adults watching this show. Its plot seems like it's written for teenagers, with its jokes written for people who spend every waking moment on Twitter. It's a show made to drum up political controversy by having its characters constantly criticizing the patriarchy. Everyone is always referencing race and gender in this show.
How do you feel about race-blind casting, Daphne?
Well, as an Asian woman,
White girl with too much money? White girl with too much money.
You don't know me. I'm a white girl who's bored.
Velma, from school. You cheat off me in Spanish because you think I'm Mexican.
As a guy, everyone thinks my worst qualities as a girl are awesome.
You look like a white influencer trying to choreograph her own dance instead of just stealing one.
If I were a rich white dude, I'd kill everybody just to get away with it.
Just being a white guy with a clipboard doesn't cut it anymore.
I felt more like I had wandered into a gender studies classroom than I was watching a comedy. Wednesday had references to the patriarchy and framed a backstory around the religious oppression of people who don't fit into mainstream society, but it wasn't in your face with every other line of dialogue. I'm completely fine with the race swapping of characters, but does that mean that every minute there's a joke about racial stereotypes? I'm good with the inclusion of gay characters, but does that mean that the characters all have to be hooking up with one another in every possible combination? Referencing pop culture in and of itself is not funny. It's not a joke to reference a Mary J. Blige song. It's not a joke to name drop Shonda Rhimes. There are a lot of jokes about Fred having a small dick because he's white, In one scene, he's also Hitler. Velma is making an attempt at divisive humor, but it's not edgy enough because blunt, socially conscious messaging takes precedence over biting political satire. It's really just a show about dating, where the MacGuffin is a murder mystery. The obnoxious dialogue provides a lot of ammunition for hate watchers, though I will mention a few positives of the production. The animation for the show is solid. The character designs look good as long as you're not having to listen to what the characters are saying. The trippy hallucination scenes are visually impressive, and there's a chase during one episode that's a throwback to the classic hallway filled with doors that defy the laws of physics scene. The voice cast includes some comedic actors I like, such as Stephen Root and Sam Richardson. Even Frank Welker, the original voice of Fred and many other famous cartoon characters, is there to voice Fred's dad, but it's too bad the characters are mostly unlikable. One of the jokes in the first episode is that Norval keeps referring to voicemails as VMs. Get it? He's annoying. Isn't that so funny?
Though I left you some other VMs, voicemail.
I know what VMs are! Get to the point!
I already did! In my VMs!
This is one of those shows where people with annoying voices yammer back and forth at one another while I sit stone-faced in front of the screen and question why I'm spending my free time this way. To quote OG film critic Jay Sherman, it stinks. 2 out of 10. When it comes to Velma, Scooby don't.
Yeah, well, Scooby Doo can doo-doo, but Jimmy Carter is smarter.